Hey guys, welcome back to the farm. Thanks for joining us. Tonight we're gonna change it up a little bit. Put yourself in a survival situation. Times are tough, food is short. You're given one choice, one animal you can raise. What's it gonna be? All right, guys, I've been thinking about this one for quite some time. What would happen, truly, what would happen if you were in a real survival situation and you were forced to just choose one animal? We're not gonna go down the road of any sort of crazy situations today, no scorched earth, no ground zero situations. We're gonna keep it along the lines of something that could realistically happen to society, something that could create that struggle, which would force people to tighten up and go with exactly that, one animal. So as we're diving into this thought experiment today, I would really appreciate to hear from you guys. I'm curious as to kind of what you guys are thinking as to what animal would work best in this situation. And we'll talk about all sorts of different situations as we kind of unwind this here. But I'm really gonna break it into 5 categories for you, and we're gonna cover a couple different animals for each. But the 5 categories are gonna be cost, it's gonna be feed, it's gonna be hardiness and environment, overall size of your animal, and then reproductive ability. And I'll talk about all that stuff as we go here. So before we even get this going, I'm gonna go on record right now and say my animal of choice is standing right here behind me. We're gonna go with the sheep, guys. Our sheep are going to be our survival animal of choice, and you're about to hear why right now. All right, so the first thing we're gonna talk about tonight, guys, is cost. We're really gonna talk about 2 avenues. There's a lot of different directions you can go here, but the first situation, you would have animals already on your property. They're already there, times are good, you have them, things start going south. Second, times go south and you gotta hurry and find something. So we're gonna start there. What's the most expensive animal you're gonna find? We're gonna rule this out right away. It's gonna be a cow. You're talking at the very, very low end, several $100s to a couple $1,000s. So very expensive to get into when money's already gonna be an issue for you. So a cow probably won't be our choice solely for that reason. There's definitely gonna be more, but that's already a disqualifier for us. Whereas far as, say, a sheep, you can spend several hundred to a couple thousand and you're gonna have a small flock. Pigs, you could have a small herd, although pigs come with many other limitations as far as I'm concerned in this situation. Chickens are definitely gonna be your cheapest. There's no questions asked. Chickens will be your cheapest. But again, I think a chicken comes with a limitation as far as scaling, and we'll talk about all that here as we go. Second situation, if you already have the animals on your farm and they've been paid for, again, times were good, you already have them, now things start going south. Well, what happens if that 1 or 2 cows do die? Well, not only did you lose that monetary cost that you paid for, you're also losing food in this situation, which depending on how bad the situation is, that can be really bad for you. And you're also losing potential bartering power. So, you know, a large animal like that, say, you know, you only need half a cow to support yourself and to survive yourself. You're gonna barter with your neighbor. Well, there goes that completely off the table. So whatever you were gonna get in exchange, completely gone, cost gone by the wayside. So of course you never wanna lose an animal, but it's definitely a realistic thing. It can happen, especially when times are tough. You might not be feeding them or taking quite the same level of care because you can't get the supplies. Suppose something does get sick and you can't source whatever you need. These are things to think about. If you have multiple animals, you can kind of spread that risk out as opposed to 1 or 2 cows. Most people aren't going to get more than 2 cows. So all things to consider when you're talking about cost. The second one is going to be feed. Cost also comes into this. But more importantly, what exactly is your animal eating? Let's start with the chicken. Chicken, I'm thinking about this one. I think chickens would be awesome because they serve kind of a dual purpose. You would have chicken and you would have eggs. And I think together you could survive on that. You know, an egg is a very complete food. Chicken, obviously, very high in protein. It would work together. But as far as a feed standpoint, where are you getting that feed? Obviously, you got to source that somewhere. So depending on how far, you know, this depression, we'll call it, goes, you might not be able to get chicken feed. You can free range them and do all the things we're doing here, but it becomes a scaling issue. That is the problem with chickens. If you don't have a large amount of food, think about what it takes to raise a meat bird. You're talking about 1/3 of a pound per bird per day. So you could raise them slower and you could let them free range a little more, you know, attract them with less feed. But now again, you're talking a scaling issue. You need more birds, you have to find a way to source them, and so forth and so on. And the amount of meat that comes on a chicken, you know, obviously you're going to be consuming probably a couple birds a day. If you have a family of say 4 and chicken's really all you're eating, well, you guys see where I'm going with that one. As far as pigs, we're not even going to go there, guys. Pig feed is outrageous. You guys that raise pigs, it's crazy. To try to source enough feed to begin with, the cost is crazy. So when times are tough, pigs are going to be very challenging unless you have a massive amount of forage for them. I think pigs are going to be extremely difficult to raise in that situation. Cows and sheep in this situation are both going to be very, very good. Obviously, we're going to go with sheep because they are going to be less selective as far as what they eat. They will eat a lot more of a variety than what a cow would, where a cow is going to be a little more particular as far as grasses and things like that. A sheep's going to go through and they're going to eat down all the weeds. They'll get up on their hind legs almost like that of a goat. And a goat would actually be good in this situation. I just really don't like goats, to be honest with you. But a goat would be good in this situation as well, because call it a drought. You know, say you hit a drought as well, and your sheep are going to keep on moving. If you have, you know, wooded land, they're going to find stuff where the cow's really going to struggle, especially, you know, that stuff starts going to seed. A cow is not going to eat it unless they absolutely have to. Then you're going to have a skinny animal, all sorts of health issues. Where sheep's just going to keep going, guys. We've seen it here. It's very dry. I mean, you see behind me, we're starting to get some green. We just recently got rain, but really they just keep moving along, keep grazing away, and you'd never know the difference. All right, so that being said, I did move to greener pasture where they're grazing. Daisy's here biting me in the leg, but we're gonna move on here to hardiness and just overall environment. So I hope this is never the case, but again, it could be a real situation where supplies aren't available to the degree that they are today. You know, maybe it's a certain mineral that you're used to giving your animals, you're not able to. Maybe it's a supplement, whatever it is. Maybe you're having an issue with getting water. That's something that definitely could be real depending on where you're at in the country, what time of year it is, you know, grid up, grid down. We can go down that road and go a little more extreme if you want, but it's all real life. It's all things that could happen. So in terms of general hardiness, what animals are going to do the best? And honestly, I do in this situation think chickens would do very, very well. I think they can survive pretty much anything. But again, the limitation for scaling, I just don't know if chickens are the right answer. I'm curious though, like I said in the beginning, I'm curious to hear what you guys have to say about that. You know, sheep, again, for us, they're going to check the box because for one, they don't drink a lot of water. You guys that are watching our channel consistently, you hear me talk about it quite often. I'll fill their water up and it'll go a couple days before they actually kind of finish that off. So even in the hot weather, water is not a huge concern. They're going to need some water like any animal would, obviously, but you know, you're talking cows, which are going to drink several gallons a day. Pigs drink a ton of water. Again, chickens, I think, would be a good option in this case when you're just ranking in terms of overall hardiness, but that scaling issue, guys. And another thing that's going to play into environment for you is going to be your space. If you're trying to graze sheep and cattle in an area that you just don't have enough space, you're going to very quickly be in the same position you would be if you just started with chickens or pigs. You're going to be in a dirt pit. You're not going to have feed for them, so you're going to struggle. You're also going to have your animals more susceptible to parasites, to worms, all that type of stuff, which you don't want, because now you're going to spiral very quickly into a tough situation. So all things to consider, you know, when you're picking these animals, as far as which would suit your climate, which would suit your environment, and so forth. All right, so we are getting a little drizzle. I don't know if you guys can see the rainbow up there behind me. It is a beautiful night out here. So farthest thing from a survival situation right now, but we're gonna move on and we're gonna talk about the next thing to consider, which is gonna be size of your animal. So why would this be important when you're considering an animal in a survival situation? Well, there's a couple reasons. First, we're going to circle right back to what we just talked about as far as your space constraint. What size pasture are you able to run these animals on? You can run approximately 5 sheep for every cow. And obviously that's give or take. So think about that one. If you have just enough space, just enough pasture room for 1 cow, you are much better off running 5 sheep. Obviously, if you lose an animal, you lose that cow, you are in a world of hurt. You lose a sheep, yes, that's gonna be terrible. It's catastrophic whenever you lose an animal, but you have 4 more. Life goes on. Hopefully you get some reproduction, which we'll talk about here next, but you're gonna be able to survive, you're gonna be able to move forward, and that's the whole point of discussing this tonight. So as far as the size of your animal, it's definitely something you want to match to your land. Now, if you have hundreds of acres and you want to go get a couple cows, so be it. Just think about those other limitations that we talked about before. I would still go with the sheep because now you're going to be exponentially more. You're going to be in a position where you're probably going to be very wealthy in a time like that, where you're able to, barter, you're able to trade, whatever, sell, whatever you want to do in that situation. Your family's not going to go hungry with, 50 sheep. And the second piece to it is just the ability to handle. So put yourself, a lot of you guys watching this have some familiarity with raising and processing animals, but again, I always go back, and I don't mean to pick on the cow. It's just, I think in this situation, there's so many limitations to it. You are ready to process that cow, everything worked out. Say you have a couple head and you're ready to finally go ahead and process it. Well, the size of that animal is going to be a challenge for you. You're going to need some equipment, most likely some sort of tractor to be able to hoist that thing up and actually be able to process it. You're going to need storage solutions. Now, again, we're not going to go too crazy, but it is realistic that there could be grid down situations for multiple days. So how are you going to be able to preserve that meat? Now, I guess if you really wanted to, you could cure and dry all that meat, but think about the process that would be. And unfortunately, you'd probably end up with a lot of lost meat in that situation, which is very counterintuitive in a survival situation where you're trying to preserve everything you can and you're just not able to. A sheep, on the other hand, you're talking about 35, 45 pounds of meat. You're able to quickly preserve that. Really, all you need is a rope to handle it. They're not that heavy. So you get a rope, you hang it up, process, do your thing, eat that animal, and you're basically, your form of storage is your animals in your pasture at that point, as opposed to trying to have some sort of preservation method. So much easier to handle a smaller animal. As far as simply handling and the ease of processing, you can process a chicken in a few minutes, but do you really want to go out there every single time you have to eat something and process a chicken? Because you're not going to be able to preserve a chicken as well. Now, I will caveat that by saying if we're not in as extreme of a situation, and most of the time we will have power, let's be honest, you can store a heck of a lot of chicken, and that is a good advantage to having a chicken there. Even the beef, you could store it, not an issue. But again, it goes back to handling it. If you or your neighbor or a friend close by doesn't have the equipment or even the experience of butchering, I mean, I'm not an experienced butcher, but I can get the job done. But a lot of people wouldn't even know where to start. They'd just be hacking meat off the animal. It causes a huge challenge for you. Next thing you know, you're in a 90-degree day trying to process that beef, and you're 8 hours in and that beef is getting hot, it's getting rancid, you're getting flies all over it. Creates a very unsanitary environment. So again, size gonna be important for you. It's gonna be something that I think could definitely get overlooked in a situation like this. A pig would be great as far as the meat yield. The meat yield on a pig is great. Realistically, if you raise them to be a decent size, you could probably handle it without the heavy equipment. But again, the pig limitations as far as feed costs and feed availability, things like that, it's gonna really hinder the pig. All right, so last but not least, we're gonna talk about reproduction capabilities. So to this point, I tried to highlight positives, I tried to highlight negatives for each. Obviously, I told you guys our choice is the sheep, so I kind of highlight that maybe a little more. I'll give you that. But this one is the kicker, and this one is the one that really makes me definitive about choosing a sheep is the reproductive capabilities. So when you're talking about a sheep, and I've talked about this on our channel before, most ewes average over 1 lamb per lambing season. So they're typically going to give birth once a year, but when you're averaging 1.5 to 2, when you're averaging almost twins each time, you are going to multiply your flock much quicker than that of other animals. The pig will farrow lots of piglets. There's no doubt about it. But I'm gonna say it again for the last time, and then I'm gonna stop talking about pigs as far as the feed. The amount of feed it takes to grow those pigs out is just, it's not gonna work in this situation. So the pig would ultimately take the cake there. As far as farrowing, I mean, we've gotten 8 in each litter, I believe. So obviously when you're talking meat production, there's a lot of capability there, a lot of potential, but it's also not realistic when you pair it up with everything else. The sheep, if you get that multiplier effect as far as having twins, couple girls and a ram, and you can very quickly grow your flock to where it becomes very sustainable to support your family in especially a longer term situation. You're gonna have multiple animals to the point where you go through a couple animals a year as far as processing. You're gonna end the year with more animals still than what you started with. So I think the sheep definitely takes the cake. Cattle are only gonna give 1. So if you lose that calf, guys, man, you're in a tough spot. Chickens, you could obviously incubate chickens in 21 days. That would be phenomenal, but we'll keep saying that one about chickens. The scaling issue, the time it's gonna take to grow them out, it's not significant, but you gotta grow out a heck of a lot of chickens to support. If you're gonna try to get egg layers, say you start losing some egg layers, you're talking 5-6 months till they come into production. You might not have that long to wait on eggs. And I think, side note on the chickens, I think the eggs are gonna be more important in this situation than the actual meat of the chicken itself. I think the egg is gonna be a more complete food. You're actually gonna get some fat, where chicken obviously is the most lean meat out of all the 4 animals we're talking about. So I know I'm talking all over the place, and these are just thoughts that are coming to my mind as we're going here. But it's all really important stuff as far as making this determination and kind of identifying the animal that would work best for us in this situation. Last thing I'll leave you with, guys, this is what would work best for us, and I think it would work best for most people that have a similar setup as to us. Obviously, I understand, you know, depending on your location, depending on your climate, things like that, there's a lot of things that could change. Maybe you have a completely different animal that I never even thought of that could help you get through a situation like this. But for us, it's going to be the sheep for all those reasons. I would say we'll go back. Cost structure, obviously it's not the cheapest, but as far as yield per dollar, I think sheep is definitely there competitively in that category. Feed is going to be a no-brainer. I mean, you're eating for free here, so feed, they definitely check the box there. Hardiness and environment, as long as you're not in a position where you have no grass, check the box there. Overall size, very, very easy to handle. Your full-grown sheep is gonna be 90, 100 pounds roughly, so something that you can literally pick up. Where a full-grown pig, no chance. A cow, absolutely no chance. And then a chicken, again, we're talking about the scalability issues. And then as far as the reproductive capabilities, again, that multiplier effect, the ability to have twins, continue to expand your flock, it really solidifies our decision. So with all that being said, guys, it's these guys right behind us. We already have them. We're gonna continue to roll with them. Sheep takes the cake today. I am really curious to hear what you guys have to say on this one. Really open to thoughts. Hey, if you guys wanna, push back, call me I'm wrong, absolutely, please do so. I'm curious to hear what you have to say. I'll definitely be open to other thoughts as well. So hope you guys enjoyed this one. We had a blast doing something a little different tonight. Most of the time I'm out here showing you what's going on, trying to teach you a little bit about what's going on our farm. Tonight I thought we'd change it up, have some fun, go through a hypothetical survival situation. And I don't think we're gonna go hungry, so that's what's most important. We got a beautiful sunset over the hill. Got some all sorts of colors here behind us. So until next time, guys, thanks for watching. As always, drop us some questions, comments. Please consider liking this video, subscribing to our channel, and we will be in touch soon. Thanks again, guys. Enjoy the rest of your night.